My name is Michael Grant. I'm the product manager for Moss Motors. I've been an employee at Moss for 21 years and I've done a number of different jobs. Since 2003, my department has been responsible for returns, tech services, and product management. And in short, what that means, my job is to make sure that when you open the box, you're happy with what's inside. One of the problems that we've had in almost every application are gas tanks. Gas tank issues are very, very common in British cars. Primarily, the reason people need a new tank is rust. The old tanks were made out of galvanized steel and they lasted for 20 to 30 years, but the water that naturally collects inside gasoline settles out inside the tank, and as the galvanizing breaks down, they start to rust. And the first telltale sign of a problem generally is a pinhole leak. Eventually, tanks can't be repaired. People start looking for replacements. We have carried MGA replacement gas tanks from every source on the planet that we could find. Every one of them had issues of one type or another. The current iteration of the tank that we're offering for sale is something we're very, very proud of. It's the end result of a 6-month-long project where we went with original samples, talked to people who restored tanks, prepared engineering drawings in SolidWorks, and found a manufacturer who was willing to deal with us on small lot productions. Now, they are an original OE tank manufacturer, so they have the facility to produce tanks to modern specifications, but the key was getting somebody who was willing to deal with the fact that we don't need 10,000 gas tanks. This is a sample tank that we pulled from stock. Before we approved the tank for production, we got a pre-production sample which we sent to Carl Heidemann at Eclectic Motor Works in Michigan. He fitted the first tank and did a side-by-side comparison with an original tank and one of the tanks that we'd been selling up to that point. And on every issue, every point he came up with, this tank proved superior. There were a couple of things, though, that were not quite correct. The location of these brackets wasn't exactly right. These are the brackets for the straps that actually hold this tank in place. The other issue he raised was the appearance of these end tanks and the exact location and the depth of these stiffening ribs. These indentations here provide stiffness to the end panel. And they produced a second article, which we sent to Carl. Suffice it to say that when Carl was done, he asked if he could keep the tank because he needed one for the car he was restoring. That's the level of quality that this tank represents. What makes it so good? First off, the inside is made out of galvanized steel. Most small production facilities can't deal with that. Secondly, a seam weld on these ends. So these two pieces of metal are stamped out, they're pressed together, and then the weld goes along the inside edge here. This is done by a machine. You can't do this by hand. One of the issues that have been raised with the reproduction tanks we've had from other manufacturers is that they were all welded by hand and they looked at. Some of them looked so bad that one guy called it looked like a refugee from a high school shop project. That's not the case with these. The tanks are all pressure tested before they get painted, before they leave the factory. They come to us, you can see that the filler neck is sealed and that the hole for the sending unit is also similarly sealed. One of the issues we had with some of the tanks we carried, this opening was actually so small that you couldn't get a sending unit body through the hole. The second issue with a lot of them was the holes for the screws. They were either threaded for metric screws or they were threaded correctly, but the holes didn't line up with the holes in either a Smith sending unit or a reproduction sending unit. That's been corrected on these tanks. You'll notice that this area here is not painted. That's a detail that is important because you can't get a good seal against a surface that's been painted. We recommend Hylamar, which is something that's actually used in the assembly line at Jaguar. Hylamar is a non-hardening sealant that's impervious to gasoline. You use that on either side of the DuPont Viton gaskets that we provide with our sending unit, you won't have a leak. The drain plug here, unlike some tanks which have a large well, there's only a small depression here to serve as the collection point for the drain plug. This drain plug has the bung for it in the tank actually has the correct original threads. The distance across the flats, though, however, is not original, but if you want to replace that with your plug out of your tank, you can do that. This tank, all things considered, is as good a tank as we have ever offered for the MGA, and it is equal to or better than any reproduction tank on the market today. And we'll stand behind that.